Hey everyone, how you doing? Tundra Super Late Model Series now just 2 months, less than 2 months away from Great Lakes testing round 1 at Wisconsin International Raceway. It's shaping up to be another high quality year for the Tundra Super Late Model Series, and one guy that we believe is going to be in contention for that Tundra title and here in 2022 is the Brockstar, Brock Heinrich. Thank you for joining us. And first off, let's get into it. Let's talk right about it. What are you thinking for 2022? I mean, I think you've made some good strides in 2021. Rookie of the year in 2020 could be the year.
Yeah, it definitely could be. We have a lot of momentum that we're coming off of. We had some really nasty luck at certain points during the season, and that put us down and behind for a lot of other things. Like for instance, like our state park schedule, we had to cancel so many races because of that. Just like we could not keep up with that anymore. We're kind of a low budget team. We like our nice stuff, and we're low budget. We want to make sure that we're doing everything right. But Kakana right away, that was a big hit because we were running so well there the week prior and that whole weekend. From practice qualifying, we were going to rack up some points there. And I mean, looking back, I think if we would have finished top 5 there, we probably would have finished 3rd in the final standings. But then we got in a wreck at Plover as well. And 2 races out of 5 is enough to cut a guy down. So to where we were just out of contention, but we still finished great at all of our other events that we were able to finish in. And we ended up with that top 5 at the end of the year, and we couldn't be more proud of that. And I think we got a lot more to show for this upcoming season.
Your moment of the year, I thought, and I'm sure you would agree with me, had to have been Jefferson. You guys,
absolutely.
You had that incident on Thursday that took your car out of commission. You jump behind the wheel of 21, which is virtually unknown for you. And not only that, that car has some issues as well. Just take us through how that all went down, and you ended up coming out with a 3rd place finish, and it really had to have felt like a victory on the day.
Oh, absolutely. That was all in all just a great day, a very, very busy day. I think it started off, we actually had a bent trailing arm unloading from the trailer. We don't know really what happened, if one of the jacks slid out from underneath it at the shop and bent it, or if it was something that happened at the track. All I know is that we had a bent trailing arm before we were even able to practice. So we missed a big chunk of that. We swapped that out, got the rear end squared again. Then we went out there, and the thing was darn near doing a wheelie on me. I'm not used to having that much power with that awesome Robbie White Southern Super Parts motor we had in there. And it just went. It was like driving a big golf or a big go-kart, I would say, just with how the steering responded and everything. It felt so smooth. It was like a Cadillac compared to my car, but the power was there. So I had to get used to that. And around the second session in practice, whatever power steering we did have went away. So for the remainder of practice, we had to adjust the car without power steering. We had to qualify without power steering, and I had a decent lap going, but I almost lost it going down the straightaway of all things, just because it was weeble wobbling all the way down the front stretch, and hard to get that thing back under control when you're not trying to turn the car. So thankfully, we were able to get a hold of a power steering pump after trying everything in the book to get that fixed. We broke a pulley, we broke a pulley puller. We got everything back together just in time, and we were able to, by the time the feature rolled around, really crank off some awesome laps and come all the way from the back up to the front. So things went really well there, and we ended up finishing 3rd. And honestly, if we probably would have had another 5-10 laps or so, I think we definitely could have been in contention for the win. I know Nottestad was way out there, and we had some work to do, but or I had some work to do there to catch him, but we were right there running behind Farrell for 2nd, and with a few more laps, we probably could have got that as well. But all in all, that was just an awesome night.
Yeah, you were really pushing at the end, and Jefferson is a track that obviously you don't have a lot of experience at, just your couple of Tundra races there. And maybe if there's been something else prior to that, but as on the super late model side, definitely not a ton. How do you attack something like that? I mean, just your 3rd visit there, or it couldn't have been anything too easy to do, and then to do it in a new car. What goes on behind the wheel for Brock Heinrich on that day?
I think it's almost easier to go to a new track with expectations that are a little bit lower than something you know so well you could do it blindfolded, because the pressure's off. I mean, maybe I just don't operate well under pressure, but the pressure's off when you go to a track like that. You're not used to the car, never drove it before. It's not that the confidence isn't there. It's just you kind of attack it knowing, all right, we got to get through this. We're going to do the best that we can. Uh, we're not under the gun here. We just need to finish and get as many points out of it as we can. However, since the season prior, I have always really liked Jefferson. That the weirder the track is, the more I like it. That's the same way I like Kaukauna. It's bumpy, it's rough, every corner is different, but it's just really matches the type of driving style that I like. You've got multiple lanes in 3 and 4. You come flying into turn 1 where you have to almost stop the car. And I guess it just kind of fits my driving style, and probably not the best track for having to go to a backup car for me. Probably not the best case scenario, but at the end, I mean, that's kind of what gets me through it. Our expectations are a little bit lower coming in, and that removes the pressure off of everybody. Not that there's no pressure, but it's not, you're expected to be top 2 here if we show up. We didn't even get to race State Park this year, but that's the kind of pressure I feel going to a track like State Park that I know fairly well.
Do you feel that pressure anywhere else? I look at Marshfield and I feel like maybe that would be a place, just kind of being a bit closer to your backyard. But to that point, you had yourself a pretty good day there. Set your first ever fast time. Ended up finishing 5th. Was that a day? Did you feel some pressure, or was that another one where you just felt pressure off and went out and performed?
Well, I certainly I knew we were fast there, but I did not expect to get fast time. And you're right, that is probably the second track to State Park Speedway where I feel a little bit more pressure, because we know we're good there. We know we can perform. Back before we worked with the Gearheads team, we showed up with equipment that only we adjusted. We didn't know much about it. We just had to learn. And I think we drove from like 22nd up to 11th. And that was, it's just kind of my style. We were spinning the tires the whole time. I had to manage that. The year prior, we were running top 3 and we wrecked out. Also showed a lot of speed there. This year, fast time. We practiced. We were fast all the way through that. We were passing cars the entirety of practice. Just that, I'd say that's definitely one of the tracks that we feel a little bit more pressure, because we know we can be good there. We've run there before a couple other times, and it kind of fits my style, the finessey throttle control, flat track, a little bit more difficult. So we knew we would perform well there, and you're right, that does add a little bit of pressure.
So looking ahead to 2022, we're talking about the tracks where, you feel the pressure off, you feel the pressure on, you know where you can and can't perform, or there are places you feel you can perform. If you were going to go ahead and call your shot for a first Tundra victory, which track are you looking at the most this year? Or do you even want to do that? Do you just want to go out and perform, and if it happens, it happens, and try to keep the pressure off? Or are you looking at one and saying, this is my moment, this is where I'm going to get it done?
I think our approach to races like that, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, this one's circled on our calendars. Well, I circle each and every one of them because there's only 6. And there hasn't been a track. I mean, Norway is going to be interesting this year because I've never even seen the place. But we are able to approach every track and say, oh, we can be competitive here. For example, like the Dells, we struggled. That's probably one of my worst tracks, but we were still able to qualify top 5, win the dash race last year. We know their speed. It's just we got to put everything together. But if I were to pick 1 or 2 places that I think would be it would be my best chance at getting a victory, I think we show a lot of strength at Kaukauna, and we show a lot of strength at Marshfield. Just higher speed tracks, a little bit more finesse there. Even Plover, I think we've come really close before and always ran well. We had a lot of misfortune last year there. But earlier in the season, I think it was the Trickle 99 race, we were able to finish fourth after starting mid-pack, and that was also a huge confidence booster. And we jumped in the pure stock last year as well for the Lashwood car, and we drove through those guys, and I was chasing down Alex Volm. It's a track that I shouldn't say I enjoy it, but we've run well there, so that's another one that's good. And obviously, State Park, that's another track that. Well, I should know it. I should have a lot more wins there than I do now, but I'd say those four tracks are ones where I'd say I have about an equal opportunity at each track. We just got to put everything together and get the job done.
I'll get back to State Park in a second because obviously your career was born and bred there at home.
Right.
But for me personally, Kaukauna was where I grew up watching racing and been announcing there for 15 years now or whatever that number is. And to hear someone like you say that you're confident that you could come in and win is I don't want to say like out of the ordinary for me, but really as someone that goes to that track and watches guys who just race there week in and week out, or Casey Johnson, who's got a lot of experience there and can come and dominate because he's got more experience there now. How do you go about feeling like you're still confident at Kaukauna? Because to me, it's just you guys don't like to go somewhere where there's a car count that is consistent each and every week, and you're going into someone's backyard, and it's going to be a little tougher. So to hear someone have confidence, it's really cool to me that you could feel that way. And I guess I'm just curious, how do you feel like you can come in and sort of rip the candy away from the locals or like a Casey Johnson or a Steve April who's come to be good there, Dennis Prunty, all of those guys who might be in contention in that race?
I think it trickles down to the places that I have the most fun at. Kaukauna was just a whole different experience. It kind of reminded me of like, for example, back in the day, they'd have like the onboards of the NASCARs and you can just hear the engine screaming. I think that is so cool. And then you just shut the thing down going into the corner. It's just the sounds kind of pump me up. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. And then you look out the window and holy moly, I'm flying here. I really enjoy that feeling. I like to go as hard as I can in those big high speed tracks. It just fits my style. I like that. And it doesn't mean that I don't show up scared, especially the first time that I was there. I was so nervous the day prior. I'm like, I've never seen this track before. I don't know what it's like. I tried watching as many YouTube videos of it as I could to learn what I could. But it was just, I think it trickles down to where or how much fun I have at these tracks. And Kaukauna, it's a rough, old, historic place. And we've also proven that we can run good there. The first time that I ever showed up, I think it was fourth is where we finished in that very first or the very first time that we were there. And we've had people come up to us and say, that just doesn't happen. Like it takes years for people to figure this place out. And I just followed the guys and did what they were doing and tried to capitalize and see if there was some place where I could be better. But at the end of the day, it's all about, I think, what I enjoy. And then that makes it easier for me going into the race.
So then very clearly one of the things you enjoy is greeting people at your home track. And we talk about Wausau, and we talk about, you've been good there when we've had Tundra races, but tell me how you cut your teeth. How did you get into it? What made you guys decide to do this? I want to get into the history in a little bit, because I know there's a lot of history with Flip and your family and those sorts of things, but ultimately you guys have to pull the trigger to want to get involved. So how did that come about, and how do you work through that progression?
Well, yeah, you kind of have to look back all the way back. Technically, even though our names weren't out there, we've had a racing family ever since the beginning. Most of it was like snowmobile racing. Like you mentioned with like Flip Merwin, my dad was on his pit crew and they were good buddies before he passed away tragically in that accident. But the year after that, and my my dad also did cross country races up in Three Lakes. But the season after Flip passed away, I had a kitty cat snowmobile, and we went and raced that just to see what we could do. My brother raced with me, and my dad raced snowcross that year too in the 40 and over division, and he won everything. I was kind of lackluster, but it is what it is. I didn't know what I was doing. I was only like 5 years old, but I showed so much interest in racing all the way through. My parents' carpet is destroyed from pushing cars around on the carpet. And one day I really remember this clearly because I was in trouble for something at school. My grandpa and my dad showed me this go-kart that they had bought from the Pioli family, Stephen Pioli, and then Stephen II. And that's where we started there. We cut our teeth doing like your dirt, like Ringle Brickyard Speedway, Clintonville, Meadowview. I think Shawano had something at some point, but the main thing, I'm thinking US Air, that's that big karting track there. We raced there later on, and we went from rookie box stock to junior 2, junior 3, right up to Animal Pro. And as soon as we won something and the state championship in every class, we need to get out of it. So we were looking at pure stocks. We took a season off, and it was really hard for us to just watch the racing. But we bought a pure stock, or Clint Sillers built our first one, and we ran with him for the first season. And then we bought Jake Chopik's pure stock, and we ran that the following season in 2016. And we showed a lot of speed with that at State Park. But from there, this is where it gets kind of interesting, because the Brickners actually financed me their limited late when Jerry moved up to Super, and Natalie Decker had gone from the WC2 car to she ran for another team for a while, but that was when she was starting to get into like NASCAR, the lower levels of NASCAR and ARCA. So Jerry Brickner was running the WC2 car after Natalie, and then I bought his limited late model. And I did this kind of behind everyone on my family's back, because I knew that's what I wanted to do, but they kept telling me, we don't know anything about this. How are we going to be able to accomplish this? Well, thanks to Tommy Ress, he showed me almost everything that I know about late models, or at least gave me the fundamentals. And we showed success at State Park in 17 and 18 with the limited late program. We won the championship there both years. And then from there, we got to start moving up and keep going. And the following season, Todd Nagel with the Gearheads team, they got a hold of us. He said he wanted to start a race team, and he bought one of the West Coon cars, which is a Victory Circle. And that's where we pretty much started with our super late model stuff in 2019. So we just kind of been progressively climbing the ladder, I would say. A lot of hard work. We've learned a lot, and we've from what we started with, I'd say we've gotten pretty far pretty quickly, because so many people that we race with now have been involved in it anywhere from 10, 15 plus years. And this is only really this is going to be, I think, our fifth year in fifth year in late models. And I learned a little bit something different all the way. I learned something different each and every year. And one of these years it's going to click, and I think we're really going to be good. But that's pretty much how things started for us and how we ended up where we are now.
I like what you said there, because that was my thought exactly when I started to learn about you as a racer, that you're someone who came along in the late model game very, very quickly. The year of late models at State Park Speedway, and then jumping into Tundra, where you had some really nice success as a rookie. Did you expect that to happen right away? Was that beyond your expectations? I mean, you can look back on it now and, like you said, just say, hey, not a lot of people do that, which is completely true. But was that the benchmark that you put when you first jumped behind the wheel of that late model, or is that just extremely gone beyond what you've expected?
Well, I would first say that nobody else on the team really expected that we would be here where we are right now. This is a grassroots, they're all mechanically inclined, a perfect ideal pure stock team, but none of us knew anything about setting this stuff up. But I followed this for so long. I wanted to attack and keep getting better. And I knew the technology with late models was what I would be able to grasp and excel with. So that's more so the reason why I talked myself in a circle right there. But I knew that I could do late models because the finesse of driving a late model and how fine all of your adjustments and all the little things that you have to do to make that car drive better was going to fit my style. I was completely confident jumping in the late models. And even Tommy, when he first came with us testing, said, well, I didn't think you were going to be that fast your first time out. I mean, we never really did anything special with the pure stock. So when we got into limited and I didn't know how to drive a stick, that was the first vehicle that I ever learned to drive stick in. We excelled right off the bat. And then we start winning races and fast times. The confidence builds. Nobody on our team knew that we would be able to do that right away, especially first season in late model. And then we just keep moving up, learning more and more and more. And I love it. I like driving the other cars. Like I had a blast running the pure stock at Plover this year, but I love super late models. I think it's so cool. I couldn't be happier for where we are and for all the people that helped us get here. But I grasped that. Nobody else on our team thought we could do it, but I wouldn't say I'm cocky about it, but I was confident right off the bat. Oh, I can do this if I get behind the wheel and show a little bit of ambition. I knew I could do that fairly quickly. It kind of fit how I am.
So with that being said, Wausau is not an easy place to
No.
be a super late model racer, to be a finesse racer. It's tricky, it's tight, it's got its rough spots. It's obviously, another very historical track, like you mentioned, Kaukauna is.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that like for you? Cutting your teeth there, does it make it a little easier to go to some of the other racetracks, or does it prepare you better? You hear a lot of people say, if you can race here, then you can race anywhere. They say that about a lot of racetracks. But I've got to feel like Wausau is one of those places where that is truly the case, that if you can figure out how to get around State Park Speedway, race with guys right at your elbows the entire time, it's got to be a little more comforting to go to some of the bigger tracks, or is it?
Well, you're absolutely right. In fact, more people have said the deal with, if you can run State Park Speedway, you can run anywhere. I've heard that from so many people. It's crazy. And I would say that State Park is probably the most difficult. Looking back, and if I were to just show up there like I hadn't raced there before, I would be completely lost. There's so many things that you have to look for and you have to learn, and you go downhill into turn 1 and 2, then you go uphill out of 2 and downhill again down the backstretch. And now the groove is basically gone there. The outside groove is pretty much gone there. I still like going to the outside there. I think people are scared of it, but it's not what it was. That track has very little grip. You have to be touchy on the throttle. You've got to be you got to be careful with your hands. You got to set up your passes perfectly, because you end up with, I would say, half a car width gap between the grass and the next car, and somehow you have to pencil your way into that position to make passes there. And it's been getting more and more difficult with how much other talent we've got showing up to race there. But I would say that State Park, driving there and learning power or throttle control, the rough spots, it's kind of a brainy track. You got to really think about what you're doing there when you're racing. So I would say State Park was definitely a good track to help prepare me for some of these other tracks that are on the circuit.
So State Park is obviously a track where a lot have come before you. And we talked about Flip, and obviously, Flip is very big in the snowmobile racing community, but Larry Degens as well. Central Wisconsin is where Dick Trickle came from, Tom Reffner. and one thing I notice about racers from the central part of the state, and this isn't to try to take away from racers from any other area, is even the young racers seem to feel that history, seem to perpetuate it as the next generation of race car driver. Coming into racing, as a young guy in a late model, into super late models for the first time, how does that affect you? How does the aura of Larry Degens and Flip and Steve Paoli and Trickle and Refner, Marzofka, how does that reflect on you? Maybe even if you didn't know it when you started, but now you see these race fans, they come up to you and they start talking about it, because I'm sure they do. How does that affect you as a race car driver, and how do you deal with that kind of, I would say, maybe a bit of pressure to try to perform and to try to carry on the sport like those guys did?
And this is actually one of those things that I don't think much about, because my family, even though we were involved with a lot of different racing, and I know like my dad and my grandpa, a lot of these team members that I have know who these guys are. I had no idea. I know names like Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Mark Martin, Dick Trickle. I know that, but I had no idea the rich history that they had within the racetracks, especially I'm referring to Mark Martin and Dick Trickle, Marzofka, those guys. There's such a rich history with those guys running tracks in Wisconsin. And I just saw myself as my own person. I am Brock Heinrich. This is my program. I love racing. I love race cars. I have nothing but respect for the people that have been there for some of them 40 plus years. And some of the names that you see at these tracks, I mean, maybe it just hasn't really dawned on me yet, the importance of that. And obviously it's important, or the names that these people have made for themselves, cutting their teeth on the Wisconsin tracks. But I've never really thought of that. I feel bad when people come up to me and they say, "Oh, this was the golden era of racing when all these guys were out here running. It was so cool. These guys dominated." And I have no idea who most of them even are, and it's almost embarrassing for me to say that, but I just like the modern era of racing that I grew up in. I would say the golden age of NASCAR is right around 2005, but that's all I know. It's unfortunate that I wasn't able to see what racing was all about back then, because I hear so many of these cool stories, but I guess based on what I know and how I've grown up, I have not grasped the importance of how much history has been created at tracks like this from all those legends in racing, I would say.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because that's a fair point, right? Everybody's golden age is something a little different. You have the people back in the
Right.
70s who got to watch Trickle and Marzofka race each and every week and dominate and win their, 60 plus features. And then you had the 80s where people got to watch Joe Shear and Jim Weber, myself in the
Right.
90s, Shear, Carlson, the 2000s, your Nate Haslies and guys like that. So it's a fair point, right? Like every age is the golden age, really, when you think about it, because, in 20 years, we'll be looking back and be like, damn, remember Brock Heinrich was racing against Riley Stencham and Casey Johnson and Justin Mondyke, and remember how good that was. So I guess to maybe go a little bit further with that question, how about some of the people that race currently, as far as, maybe they're competitors, or maybe they were a little before you, or maybe you don't get to cross paths with them much. Are there any guys that influence you now that you race against or have seen race?
I would say on the short track scene, it was definitely the Wimmers, being that we're all from Wausau. It was easy for us to have a connection with that family, and my dad knew that family quite well. Scott Wimmer, also great friends with Flip and Chris. He's in town. The first time I ever touched a super late model was one of Chris's. He let me come over and help clean it so that I could get used to what racing is all about. So those guys were a huge influence on me. Going way back, I think it was 2005 at Chicagoland Speedway. Um, I think I followed Scott Wimmer around. I don't even remember how that was. I'd have been like 7 years old. I think I followed him around like a lost dog. He was in the campsite hanging out with the group of people that we were there with. It was some of his friend group. And people were coming out of the woodwork to see this NASCAR driver. And I thought it was so cool that I was able to hang out with Scott Wimmer, and he was right from my hometown, and he does all this other racing, and we've seen him race super late models. In fact, I had a race car bed for the longest time. He had a wreck at Slinger. I don't remember what year that was in either, but I took the whole front clip of that car home with me, and I fixed it up and I put it around the race car bed. So I was just huge Wimmer fans there, and obviously Chris is doing a great job running his program as well. And that what's the word I'm thinking of here for that? I would say the history for that family and racing just keeps on growing and growing, and it's fun to follow them around and see what they're doing. But other names would be ones like Mark Mackesy. He was, when I first started coming to State Park, we got to watch him a lot. Neil Knoblauch, another big name for racing there. And my parents knew him fairly well too. So at least showing up, I knew who to say, oh, this is who we're going to root for tonight. Because I didn't know any of these guys. I knew who the Wimmers were because they were involved with NASCAR, and that's all I had been exposed to up until I started racing go-karts in 2008. So I'd say those are the three bigger names that I've been able to watch growing up on the short track scene that have influenced me to want to keep going and or say I want to be one of these guys when I'm older. And I've set goals for myself where I just want to race a super late model. That was the first goal that I've ever set. Well, then I just want to win a super late model race. Or I should say even before all that was I just want to race a car. And it's all because of those guys and watching them and idolizing them that I was able to stick with it, be ambitious, and finally make it to where we are today. So I'd credit those three, Knoblauch, Mackesy, and the Wimmers for building that ambition in me to make me want to be a race car driver and fill them. I wouldn't say fill them shoes, but be in that position.
Yeah, and isn't it wild now you get to go sit in their victory lane when you win races, right?
Right. It's cool.
Yeah. So we're taking a look at the 2022 season with Tundra. And, you talked about last year and the places where you felt like you really could have made up some gaps to put yourself in title contention. This year, provided the luck is there, Norway's going to be the wild card, right? I mean, you know what to expect
Right.
at Kaukauna, you know what to expect at Marshfield, Plover, Dells, Wausau. How do you approach 2022 knowing that that's going to be pretty much a wild card for 90% of the Tundra guys? There's going to be a few, Justin Mondag, Dalton Zier, they're going to know. They're going to know what to do, but everybody else is going to be kind of feeling it out. So how do you approach the season knowing that there's that one race in the middle that could be a huge head scratcher for everyone?
Well, the bummer part is how much we actually enjoyed running Jefferson. I just love that track, and we feel we had that kind of figured out, and now it's just erased from the schedule and filled in with Norway, someplace that I've never even seen before. I like it because, again, like I said earlier, the expectation for me isn't there. We can show up at that race, our family team, and we got a lot of awesome members. If we can keep the pressure off and enjoy ourselves, we're going to end up being successful. And it's been like that almost every time that we've gone to the track, or especially new tracks. Not that I'm not nervous to run it. I'm excited to run it, but I think we're going to attack that just like we attacked Kaukauna the first time, Jefferson, the Dells, pressure's off. Even though we know we can contend at all these tracks, that expectation isn't set quite as high as it is for some of these other tracks. So I think we're just going to show up there and enjoy ourselves. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we can shock a few people and rip a top five result out of the book and hang that over our heads and carry that momentum. I mean, I don't know how many people in the Tundra series have ran there before. And like you said, Dalton Zier, Justin Mondyke, they've ran there before and they know that track well. But I don't know how many of these other guys have ran there. I mean, we could very well be a top 3, top 4, top 5. I think for sure we're going to be top 10 strength no matter where we go this year. But I think that our chances are just as good there as they are at some of these other places, just because of the attitude that we have showing up at new tracks.
And I think regardless, you guys are going to have a good time, because whether people know this or not, the Heinrich clan, always number 1 in fun, right?
Absolutely.
You guys know how to have a great time at any racetrack. And I just remember a top 5 finish at Wausau dancing inside the barrel. Maybe let's see. Let's timestamp this and see if I can get that. I might be able to get that video in here. I won't embarrass you too much, but
you can embarrass me as much as you want. It just ain't gonna happen.
It does exist. So you know, one thing I really love about what Tundra has become is the fact that, you know, we are a series that appeals to teams like yours, and obviously we love to appeal to as many teams as possible, but you know, true family team with a bunch of people that come and help you, that are your friends, and a list of sponsors that I can never read in 2 or 3 laps, which is amazing. And don't get me wrong, don't ever change that. That's fine by me.
That's a good problem. We always say that's a good problem.
It's a great problem. I mean, just tell me, you know, what does it mean for your family to take the time and to be able to enjoy racing together like you guys do?
Well, racing for us is a love-hate deal. We all love racing, but when you get to the running this caliber of racing, it's a lot of work as well. And that's where all these other guys and gals that we work with, it makes it so much more enjoyable. The hard part is what goes on behind the scenes. When we're at the racetrack, most of us are just doing our jobs. We like being there. We like hearing the cars. We like the people. We like having a beer or 10 after the races. I like dancing in barrels. I just like having fun, you know, and we can combine that. We can combine that in with everything. And we heard from Wes Kuhn. It was either last year or the year before. He said, I'm only going to keep doing this until I'm not having fun anymore. And it's the same way for us. Yes, it's a lot of work and we stress about it a lot, but we just enjoy this so much, the atmosphere and racing in general, that it really drives us to want to keep going back. It's kind of like a disease that doesn't kill you. It's something that you got to go and do, and we enjoy it. I mean, a lot of people don't like racing, but it's that family environment. We are able to all come together and just enjoy it, and everybody on the team enjoys it, and we've learned a lot. And I think Tundra is a great platform for us, because there isn't a single person that I don't get along with out in the Tundra field. Even officials, you, for instance, the Litchfields. And another thing is the first time that we were able to actually talk with some of, I would call you guys the admins, was at this banquet. And we had such a blast there. I don't know how long we were up. It had to have been close to 4 a.m. But that's really what I think makes racing cool, is a lot of these other things, like even football, soccer, hockey, blah, 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 blah. You don't have that kind of celebration at the end of the year. There's something special with racing that even if you don't enjoy racing, or the actual racing aspect, the people that you're with are enjoyable as well. So we're big on that, and we just love having fun with our family. And there's gonna be quite a few seasons yet to come where we're out there hanging out, racing and partying too. So
we love that. We always enjoy having the post-season festivities. So my last question to you is, you know, let's get under the layers here of Brock Heinrich, the Brockstar, a little bit. When you're not racing, what kinds of things are you doing to fill your time? What other hobbies do you have outside of the sport?
Well, this man, I feel really bad, because now that I think about it, I really miss my snowmobile. I sold that to it just there was so much upkeep with it, and I don't make a whole lot of money. I was never able to buy another one, but I loved snowmobiling. Um, I ice fishing was a big deal this year. We got to go with Cole Fergie. He's joining with our team this year as well. He ran a pure stock and mini stock and a mini mod at State Park with us for almost as long as we've been out there doing it. Uh, Mitchie Thompson, which is a Dylan Mackesy spotter, and he's one of my spotters as well, also on my crew. We went ice fishing so much this year. I there's something about ice fishing that I just love. Maybe it's the fact that three of us can destroy a case and a half of beer in one sitting, and there's no we don't have to worry about much. We're just out there sitting with a rod in the water and just hanging out. But I don't know, there's a lot of science behind fishing too, and anything that's really technical and difficult I kind of latch on to because I like to be challenged. CrossFit, that's something else that I started about a month ago. I enjoy it because it's difficult, but it really is hell. Especially if you have a crappy second half of the season, you don't get to run as many laps in the car and you put on 40 pounds like I did. Ice oval racing, fishing in the summer, I enjoy. I like going to races. I love spotting for people. I like being on pit crews, boating, sitting back in a chair with the beer in hand or a cigar, something, just kind of loafing out. But I am so busy all the time with this racing stuff. Anytime that I can just stop, that's what I enjoy the most. It, like, not stop racing, but just sit back, relax a little bit. I like going to the Tiki Beach and on Lake Dubay and just hanging out, sitting around and loafing out, because it's we run 24/7 all the time. And there's only 2 months that in the winter we were able to really slow down for, because things are wide open again. We're building a pit box. We had a trailer shop. We had to, well, tonight before you called, I ripped everything off the car and down to every washer, nut, and bolt that's on that car. I've inventoried it, found a part number for it, and I've been logging it in a sheet. So that way I know what I can get for spares. But yeah, no, I'd say it's fishing, anything that has to do with open water or a lake, snowmobiling, which I haven't been able to do for the last 2 years. Just hanging out. I like going to parties or where there's bands and whatnot. I've got a lot of rowdy friends, and we all just like having fun. And I know I'm not going to be able to do that forever. So, I try to take advantage of that as much as I can.
Enjoy while you're young, my friend. It catches up with you, but it's always a good time. I got to ask you, since you talked about building, you won the 5-star body this year. Our good friends at 5-Star Race Car Bodies give us that ABC Next Gen body. That's going to be on the car, or are you going to save that for something special?
We've got that. It's sitting on the side because we wrecked so much stuff last year that the only race that the body that we have on the car right now ran was Oktoberfest, and we didn't put a scratch in the thing there. So I have some old doors. I'm going to replace that. And if we don't have to switch the body entirely at some point this year, 100% it'll be on the car for next year. I love those bodies. I think they're sharp. I actually like both bodies. The super late model body is just cool. It will be used, and we're not selling it. We're not doing anything with it. We're just waiting for that right time where, okay, it needs a reskin. My schedules for the whole season is spaced out. So if I have issues with something, we've got time to fix it, and we're not constantly under the gun, which just stresses everybody out. We might be able to utilize that time and remount a body. So we got our car back kind of late in the season. It was in storage. The Gearheads guys were doing inventory with the equipment, so that kind of limited the amount of time I had to switch the body out, which I would have. But we're gonna leave what we have on there for now, and we're just gonna wait for that right time where we're say, okay, it's time to make a change, and we're gonna throw this on there. We're gonna make it look sharp like we always try to do, and we're gonna go and race with it.
Hey, that's all right. Use what you got while you got it. Brockstar, thank you. Much appreciated. Looking forward to seeing what you got up your sleeve at WIR, because, like you said, you've been running well there. And I gotta believe you're gonna be one of the contenders in this race coming up here on May 14th, and we'll see you then. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you. I had a blast.
All right, folks, that's Brock Heinrich, the Brockstar 2020 Tundra Super Late Model Series Rookie of the Year. He's going to be looking for his first Tundra win here in 2022, maybe a championship. It starts less than 2 months. Great Lakes Testing, Wisconsin International Raceway. We'll see you there.